Sorry.
All right. Welcome everyone to the Toku Portal podcast. It's me, Zero, here with.
Rye. Uh, just us tonight. Welcome to Kamen Rider Zero-One, episode 25. Uh, Aruto enters his office with high enthusiasm, and there's no way he starts every morning like that.
Um, maybe. I don't know. That guy, it's kind of hard to tell. But, like, yeah, it was definitely way too fucking intense. Like, especially considering I'm not a morning person. Like, man, that would have been, like, super annoying.
And, like, Izu's sitting in front of a fan, like, making noises in front of it like a child would, with, like, the ice bag on her head, saying that she's not feeling well. So Aruto starts to prepare her his, like, cure for it when he realizes, like, wait, you're human gear, you don't get sick.
Yeah, that was pretty good too. Also, like, at first I'm like, oh, it's gonna be like a subversion. Instead of getting a cold, she's just overheating, but she's just acting like she has a cold because that's what I guess for a machine it would be like. But no, it's just she just lost her connection. Um, but yeah, that was a pretty cute bit. Actually, Izu gets like a lot of really cute moments in this episode.
Like when Arda
Um,
goes to check her forehead and she, like, starts
checks
checking
it.
his.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I'm like, Izu, do you even know what you're doing? Um, there's that, and then there's like a little bit later on, and Arto like does the announcement, and you see beside him like Izu's also doing the thing. I'm like, ah, it's so
Yeah,
cute.
he's just so great.
Yeah, I man, this episode, whoever like directed this episode did such a good job, like action wise and like little like Easter eggs and stuff like that. It's so good.
Like, she brought in a human gear doctor, one of the old models from before Daybreak Town, who actually who helps design other human gear. Turns out Izu's connection to Satellite Zaya is being interrupted because somebody put a blocker in.
Okay, so is it just the office has the jammer, right? So I'm like, literally go outside, right?
But that's not the point.
Yeah, I know. It's just one of those weird things. Um, but yeah, you're right. It's I mean, it's interesting that they brought such an older humor gear, and he's like, he gives all this exposition of like, oh, I made the humor gear and stuff, and then you get all the exposition.
So Fua comes to let Aruto know that, like, hey, somebody broke Hirobi out. Uh, and, like, the surveillance footage has been tampered with to cut out what happened.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at. Is like we get Hirobi's backstory, but I'm like, considering what happens later on in this episode, is that actually his real backstory?
Right.
I'm
Uh,
guessing yes, because like that character is like there's no point in hiding any of this anymore.
the
So
doctor Humagear is just like, yeah, I was the one who designed Hirobi. He was supposed to act as a sort of parent to other Humagear, not be a terrorist. And that gives us context as to why Hirobi kept calling Jin his son.
yeah, dude, that like it would have been so much more interesting if Hirobi made Jin, but like that's not what we're going for. We also get all this exposition of like, dude, this was basically a fucking recap episode, right? Like half
Yeah,
of this episode,
like
and
not
it's
even half
actually
though.
really well done.
Yeah, Vashi and I were watching it together yesterday, and we realized, like, this is a recap episode that's worth watching.
Yeah, especially because like there's so much shit going on. Plus, you get to learn a little more detail where it's like
It's like
so.
all the recap
It,
is just putting the timeline into order while answering questions that haven't been answered yet.
yeah. Plus, I feel like I guess this is leading into stuff from the movie, which probably you get to see more of in the movie, but this is putting it back in, like how in Xaid you get the whole like Parado and Emu thing, which happened in the movie first, and then they put it in the show. So that's cool. You also get to figure out that like yeah, it wasn't just um, Hidan and Zaya. It's like the government was also involved in all that. I'm like, oh, okay, because I thought it was just like a joint project, but I guess it does make sense. Also, like Hidan's whole like AI everywhere. That's only a 4 year thing. Like that's insane.
Oh, to correct myself on something. Hirobi wasn't designed to be a parent to other human gear. He was designed to be a surrogate father to children, to human children, such as how Aruto had a surrogate father human gear. That's what Hirobi was programmed to do.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense. Also, I also like the moment where it's like Arto thinks he's talking about his dad, but it's like no, we're talking about Jin. I mean, not Jin, Hirobi. That was a pretty good subversion.
But also, you find out what happened to Aruto's real father, which was he fucking died in the explosion at Daybreak Town.
Yeah, like that was intense because like you get a lot of backstory. Well, I mean, I guess if you watch the movie, it would make sense, but it's all like, yeah, they weren't out of control. I built the rider system to fight them. I fired satellite Zaya, and then the town blew up. Trying to stop like that's very like it's very old school, but it's also like clearly like Begins Night or whatever from Double. No, wait, or is that from Decade? Not Decade. Drive. Whatever. Same writer, but the point is like yeah, this kind of a trope that writer has, but like that's a pretty good explanation. Um, Also, it kind of puts into perspective like how like the writer system has kind of been there from the beginning. Like it wasn't just some new thing. It's like no, it's like
Oh,
integral to this whole mess.
nope, I'm wrong.
Okay.
Uh, Arto's human father did not die in the explosion. It was his Humagear father who was hacking into the Ark to stop it from launching into space when the explosion happened.
Yeah, it was the Human Gear.
Yeah, we still
Or
don't know what happened to Arto's human father.
well, we don't even. Hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, maybe it'll come up, maybe it'll never come up. It's fine either way. I mean, Daybreak was like 12 years ago, so like Arto, I mean, you see him, he's a pretty young kid. He could be adopted, just like, kind of Fies esque.
Uh, so,
So yeah, we get the lead about Hirobi broke out because Fua shows up. And before we get into that, we actually had a comment about Fua in the last episode. Comment by unclaimed username. That's pretty clever. Um, and their comment, like I guess yesterday, is here from the future. And okay, it says 8, but maybe it's supposed to be I mistyped. Who knows? Have to say, with the introduction of who, Fua being a Borg is likely or at least viable. So they're saying like Fua could be a cyborg. Um, especially with
Vashi's been
what.
saying, hinting at that for a while now. Like, he
Yeah.
believes that.
Okay. My other thing with that is like because of what happens at the end of this episode is like maybe well we know Fu is human, so that's not a thing. But it's more like no, we'll get to that. Yeah, but you're right. Fu could be a cyborg because he keeps seeing people, and the weird like, or he could just be a straight up robot. But that's unlikely. It would
No.
be interesting.
Uh,
Yeah.
Vashi's theory is that Fu was being operated on by a Humagear when his life was in danger. At the same time that Mitsubo Jinrai tried hacking into all of the medical Humagear. So he thinks that
Oh, they
while
installed something.
like they installed something, and that Fua might actually be the mysterious cloaked figure that has been going around giving people raid risers and turning them into monsters.
Dude, that'd be. I mean, like it would fit. Um, because yeah, at this point, Yua and Fua are both pretty suspicious. But like, yeah, considering Fua actually sees this mysterious person and nobody else does, it would make sense.
Personally,
Yeah.
uh, uh, I believe that the hooded figure, Nato, I think, is Bo, the fourth member of Metsubo Jinrai. And
Yeah. I mean,
we see the hooded
cons-
figure in a shot of Metsubo Jinrai in this
yeah, that's what I'm
episode.
saying. Right, because when they were formed, there's four of them already there, right?
Yeah, Hirobi, Jin, Ikazuchi, and Nato. Or who we can assume is Nato.
Yeah. It's gonna be interesting. I mean, like, I don't think they're gonna be like, oh, whoa, super subversive, and like Fu has been like a double agent this whole time. I'm like, well, he could be a double agent, but like, I don't feel like he's a robot because like that doesn't add anything to his character because the cyborg thing is so much more interesting than just making him a robot.
Plus, we already got a cyborg, Thouser.
Oh yeah, that's a good point too. Also, we learned like Thouser is not complete, right? Like
Yeah,
his he's been planning like he's doing all these fights to upgrade the Thouser system. Like that's interesting. Like he's busted as all hell. Also, like we had like a weird moment where people are like implying like, oh, Zai is gonna get into the weapons manufacturing business, which is really stupid because they're already in the weapons manufacturing business. But then like later on, they're like, oh yeah, it's just growing the business. I'm like, that makes way more sense. Because like they're already a like weapons contractor.
so like they wonder, oh, who could have like evil access into whatever or something like that, and then Ardo and Fo just look at each other and then cut to them interrogating Thouser.
Yeah, also not like arresting him for. I mean, you can say like statute of limitations. Also, he's like a CEO, so like your case would get thrown out in like 2 seconds because lawyers. But realistically, like they should have still taken him in. But then later on in the episode, it's implied that like Fu is afraid of Guy, so he doesn't want to make a direct move. So like I can kind of buy it. It's still a little fucking weird that they're letting like Guy walk around even though they know he's the one who caused all this shit.
Like, at one point, Aruto and Fua straight up accused Thouser of like, yeah, you were the one, you've been feeding human malice to the Ark, and both Vashi and I were just like, when did they figure that out?
Yeah, I mean, I think he says it. Well, he
He
says it to
he says
Yua.
it to Yua. When did the heroes finally figure it out? I mean, he hasn't exactly been hiding the fact that he's the bad guy for like this entire arc, but still.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, I'd we would have to go back and check, but That is a good point because I know Yua knows for sure, but they.
Yeah, he confessed everything to Yua in a private meeting.
Right, right. That's true. It's weird. I mean, maybe he said something last episode. I don't think he did though.
I mean,
Hmm.
he probably spilled something during the whole metal cluster opera incident because he was pretty much jerking off to the arc during that.
It's so true. Um, it. We would have to go back and check. That might be a plot hole, but like realistically, everything else he's done would like so easily connect him to the crime anyway. Plus, they know that Zaya worked on it, and they know he was the project manager. So like, and he's running around with the damn belt. So it's like, of course, right? Like, why wouldn't he be the guy who fucked with it?
We also get confirmation that Zaya does run Ames. It's a subsidiary
Yeah,
that Thouser himself started as a countermeasure to the Humagear. That he would
this.
inevitably be the one to start putting out of control. Kind of a self
Yeah.
fulfilling prophecy right there.
Well, I mean, his whole point is to make the rider system be like he's basically
He
doing
he's
the
Syndrome.
kind of. I was gonna say he's yeah, it's true. I was gonna say more like he's Namba Industries where it's like they're creating the problem and the solution. But Syndrome works too.
Like,
Well, he doesn't want to be the only one, so
no, no,
he
no.
wants to.
Syndrome's whole thing was that he was gonna make technology so that everyone could be a super. That way, no one would be a super.
Okay, that's fair. Well, Guy doesn't want everyone to be, but yeah, it's a good point. He's basically just creating the problem and then selling them the solution. So, disaster capitalism at its best. So capitalism really is the monster.
Capitalism really is the biggest evil.
I mean, it's true, but Jesus, like we don't even need the shocker shit at this point with this asshole.
So we get this cool moment where, Fuwa's getting all pissy about just being Thouser's like watchdog basically, but he doesn't accept that's just all Ames is. Uh, he's not Zaya's tool. He defeats his enemies according to his own rules. That is who Kamen Rider Vulcan is.
Yeah, which leads into Arto doing his bit of
Of
like I want to protect like the dream of like human gear and humans working together, and that's what Zero-One is. It's like, man, such good moments. Like, whoever freaking directed this and wrote, like, this is such a well done episode because, like, they're acting like Writer 1 and Writer 2, and everybody's in character. Guy being free is still stupid, but at least they kind of wrote a reason for why he's free because, like, they got other shit to deal with right now.
yes.
Um, but damn, man, like, this episode, like, everything's working. Like the fights are so well. We'll get to the fights, but yeah, that was such a good moment between like I finally believe that like Fua and Arto are totally not like like the first and secondary riders now. They're no longer like this rival like or enemy thing going on, which is great. Also there was that moment in the like the Hidan headquarters thing where like Arto tells a joke and Fua like just bursts out
Right, right,
laughing,
right.
but he's
Like
trying to.
he's trying to hide it, so like he walks over to Arto like he's gonna start strangling him, and just grapples him in this big bear hug. Like he's super angry, but he's secretly just like laughing behind Arto's back.
That was such a good moment,
Oh,
man. This is such a well
this was
written
written
episode.
by Yu Takahashi himself, the head writer for the show.
Well, I think he's written like pretty much all of it, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, just like X8, so that's pretty great. Um,
The director, um,
Yeah.
He
So
he's done some work in Ghost, X8, and Build.
really, I
Yeah.
mean, those are really interesting shows, especially experiment wise. Because man, some of the shots in this episode and some of like the fight choreography, like really interesting angles and stuff like going on, so much more dynamic. It's also good that like Toei's CGI budget has not run out, even though we're like halfway through the show. So we can actually make shit look decent.
Uh,
Also, there's this like moment, like there's so many cool moments. Like there's this moment where like Arto like slashes and it like knocks the enemy away with his slash, who then crash into other enemies and explode. That's great. Like the dual henshin was freaking great. That other fight with that other character, like all that is great except for there's one shot. There's this one shot where it's like everything. This whole episode is 16:9, except for one shot where it goes 4:3. It's like it's the shot, the moment where he like does that like kick and it goes to like the vertical shot and then it shows him landing the hit. I'm like, this is like the most basic shot. Why is this 4:3? But it is. I was like, that's so weird. But besides that, like, fuck, everything was so good. But we'll get to that fight.
the director also did the Ghost Rebirth movie for Kamen Rider Spectre.
Oh, I haven't watched that, but
Heisei
Spectre.
Generations. Oh, go on.
Yeah, Spectre usually has like really awesome fights anyway.
Heisei Generations Final Build in
Well,
X8.
yeah, that probably explains it because that movie has like freaking awesome action.
And
Honestly.
Kamen Rider Build Be the One. You know, the movie that had a guy fired out of a helicopter.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And also that shot
Uh,
of Build taking pictures of a puppy.
oh god, it's true. Uh, yeah, yeah. So like they got a guy who knows how to shoot real interesting shit and real human moments too. So good job, Toei. You
Power
actually
Rangers
got your
Wicca.
brain to function for once
Oh,
and didn't decide to screw everybody else over.
he
Like,
also did the
okay, you know
first
what?
two episodes
Whoever the
of Re
fuck is
Soldier.
managing the budget, good for you. Because you are probably like MVP right now because Toei somehow has not run out of money. Um, considering we're not like throwing forms left, right, and center, so it's not Bandai just throwing money at them at this point. Man, like this episode was so good. Even that piece of shit plastic sword looked kind
Dude,
of okay.
Vashi said the same thing. When we were watching it, Vashi was legit like, when it's in motion, the sword doesn't even look bad. To
Yeah,
which I
it's
replied, I'm not even looking at the sword because that's how little I care about it.
yeah, the sword is crap, but it's slightly
It's
less crap
it's
this
it's
episode.
just so bland that I don't even notice it when he's using it. The axe, that's a super big thing and it looks cool. I see that.
Yeah, like the axe is so much more interesting. That should have been like I'm kind of amazed that he used like cluster hopper to be honest, because like you're fighting grunts. There's no need for this power. You're already in like a OP form to begin with.
It was just them both using their assault modes.
Right, I know, but like assault hopper has like fin funnels or bits or whatever. So like he doesn't even need cluster hopper. Like he already has crowd control built into that form, right? So it's like, why? Like I don't mind him having metal cluster. Like if he needs it, like if he's fighting like Bowser or something, I'm like, okay, cool. You know, you need something pretty strong for that. But like for grunts, I know it's because like Toei and Bandai is like it's the new form. We have to show it off. But I'm like, no, you
Oh,
don't.
also, we got a literal berserk form for him in Metal Cluster, but its like finisher is Final Rise. They didn't do the like terrorize thing I was hoping for.
Oh, dude, yeah, you're right.
So remember
I
when
mean,
like
yeah, go
Kilo,
ahead.
Mega, Giga, and whatnot?
Oh, yeah, that would have been so cool. It's honestly that thing has a really awesome finisher. I mean, it's basically Faiza's finisher, but in not speed form. Um, so yeah, that thing has a cool finisher. But yeah, you're right. It's weird that it's so just like, hey, look, it's a good guy suit now. I'm like, no, this thing is super dangerous. Ah, whatever. Anyway, besides Metal Cluster Hopper existing, um, what did you think of the fights?
Oh, the fight was really good.
Yeah,
But still doesn't compare to the fight that comes next with
yeah.
surprise
I mean,
appearance.
wait, wait.
Gone.
I also did like one moment where it's like Arto gives Fua his gun, but like authorizes it so Fua can still shoot with it. I was like, oh, that's a great moment.
Fua rushes on ahead and finds himself face to face with Kamen Rider Jin, Burning Falcon form. Oh,
Oh no, who let Phoenix out of the sun?
pretty much.
I mean, Phoenix would be like way more OP, but fuck it. You know, at first I'm like, oh, wings. I'm like, wait, what? Reddit wings? Who the fuck let what's the Ankh form in O's?
Tajador.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, but I'm like, oh, maybe that's not the right name. But yeah, Tajador, and I'm like, wait, no, it's probably him coming back, and he comes back in all flames. I'm like, oh god, Phoenix is back! Run for your life! Where's Beast when you need him? Um, but I mean, this thing is not as busted as Phoenix Return would be, but damn, is it a nice suit? And holy shit, that fight was so good. But I guessed about the first one. You can guess about this one.
So speaking of like swords, Jin's new sword actually looks cool.
Yeah, I also like how he has like a proper driver now because he's a
Yeah.
Kamen Rider.
So we're approaching a point. We're not there yet, but we're approaching a point where every rider is going to have their own unique driver that they use.
Oh, dude, sick. Which means Yua is gonna get an upgrade or something. Which
Correct.
I'm
Yua
cool.
is going to be using a different driver at some point.
Nice. Um, hmm. No, it's fine. Uh, I'm guessing the intro's still the same. I guess it's just usually I skip the intro so I haven't noticed. But I was like,
Yeah, it's the same, just Thouser's there.
yeah, because I'm like, did they add this scene where like Yua's doing the like boardroom shit or like office stuff? Because I'm like, was that there? I don't know.
But like
Anyway,
the like final shot though is still like the five riders. Uh, Zero-One, Vulcan, Valkyrie, Jin, and Hirobi.
which means that like Thouser is definitely not sticking around, which good.
And
Fuck that
Hirobi
guy.
is probably like getting his rider powers back.
I mean, considering what happened at the end of this episode, where we'll get to that. I have speculation for that. It's gonna be interesting.
But before we get there, Jin's new finisher, Burning Rain, like that was just a really cool shot. And when I took the screen cap of it, I looked at it and went, "This would make a really metal desktop background."
Dude, that thing is so cool. Like that fight was amazing. Plus that form, like holy shit. Plus then like Jin shows up and he's like super cool version of Jin. I was like,
Right,
oh
like
man.
he dehensions and he's wearing a suit now. Like
Yeah, I'm like,
you
what the hell?
smug
Did you step on it?
motherfucker! How
Right?
dare
Did you
you
step?
clean up?
I was like, did you just step on a Ryuki or some shit? Like, is this like Kitawa? Because man, that would be so cool. Um,
He like fucking
yeah,
cleaned up
that's
well
so
or
cool.
cleaned up and matured or some shit.
Yeah, which they kind of talk about where it's like, wait, were you built by Arc what's going on, and he's like, oh, wouldn't you like to know? He doesn't
Or,
answer.
well, I can already tell you because at first they're like, wait, is he human? Because he doesn't have the ears. He
Yeah, but
does.
this guy,
He has normal ears with like the implants hidden inside them. You
yeah, he's
know,
got like earrings now, and they're green instead of being like
you know
red
who
or
has that
purple.
technology? Zaya.
That's
Because
interesting.
like,
Yeah, I was thinking maybe Zaya rebuilt him. I was also thinking he also says that the arc is so far like it's evolving. So I'm like, oh, maybe all this other shit was just a distraction for the arc's real plan, which is to upgrade its writers. So like Hirobi is an upgraded writer, but like to upgrade you have to die and have the arc remake you. And that's what leads to what like Jin pulling a gun on Hirobi at the end.
well, like, okay, so here's the thing about that scene, right?
Okay.
Hirobi hands Jin his old gun, and Jin says, "Thanks, but I'm not here for this." And then he does start menacingly walking towards the camera, which is where Hirobi is standing. However, he doesn't point the gun in his direction.
Maybe, I mean, then again, they could just cut away and mean next episode is like, oh, Hirobi's getting rebuilt. So,
Like,
like, it could just imply that he got shot because they don't want to show it.
that's the problem is that like it ended on that cliffhanger, and Bastion are like, "What the fuck?"
What X8's writer and cliffhangers that never happened.
But like,
um, but yeah, that was such a good moment. I honestly feel like my theory right now is like you have to like basically be a reformatted human gear, in which case like you pretty much have to be killed.
this model, absolute trash.
Yeah. Well,
Go,
because
go.
like Hirobi goes to get his driver, but he can't do anything with it, right? And then Jin probably because he still has the old ears and stuff, right?
Right, like this model, trash. Time for an upgrade. Give me your CPU and motherboard.
Yeah, it's pretty true. It's gonna be really interesting to see how Hirobi looks once he cleans up. Because I'm like, Jin is so different. Like Hirobi is doing his weird like gak thing of like samurai shit, but then he kind of dropped that. So I'm like, it's gonna be really interesting to see what personality he comes up with. Because like Jin barely had one, so it's like, oh, well, you just made him more human. That's cool. I want to see what Hirobi is like when he comes back.
Uh, but we don't know when that's going to be because next episode we return to the challenges with challenge number 4, a firefighter contest.
Yeah, I mean they. It's nice that they like put that in because like it'd be a weird break because it's like, hey, it's such an important thing, and then like we stop, but it's like no, in this episode they hint that like Guy and Yua are getting ready for the next contest,
Well,
right?
personally, we've detracted so much from it, it feels weird to go back. For me, at least.
Yeah, I mean we kind of have to get it over with because we know that like that arc's pretty much over. It's like time to move on to like new Matsubo Jinrai or new arc stuff. So I guess we just have to end it. But yeah, you're right. It's weird that we're going back to that.
Uh, but we run into the problem again where, like, by having Zaya win the first 2 in a row, we can kind of just be like, okay, so now Hiden is just gonna win all the rest.
Right. Um
Like,
it's
there's
it's
still.
also a weird episode. Yeah, you're right. It's like plot wise there's a lot less tension, but it's also a weird setting where it's like, oh, can a human even save human lives? I'm like, what the crap is that, man? Like the one thing you would think a robot would be good at is like, hey, fire, bad. Go in there, get the human, get them out.
Like, even if they were just trading off wins, you still have the tension of, like, who's gonna win this one, though. But with this, it's like I refuse to believe that Aruto is not going to win this challenge because then it would just be over.
Well, I mean, unless they somehow go back in time and kill like Kamen Rider Blade's parents or something, I'm pretty damn sure no humans are gonna burn to that in the next episode. Um, yeah, it's weird. You're right. They've kind of messed up the tension because like again, if it was like I don't know, man, like
So like
one
it's a
lost.
hard way to do this because no matter what you do, it's going to be predictable. So what's the most effective way to do it?
Yeah, that's a good point. Like honestly, yeah, they're gonna win, right? So it's 2-2 at that point. At that point, uh, and then it just becomes like final battle, I guess. So I guess we're just getting Bowser out of the way, which honestly at this point he's kind of just there. Like he's not really doing too much.
It's like
Uh,
if they were trading off wins, like okay, Zio won the first round, second round, like he then needs to win this one, or Zio will have two wins under the belt and just need one more. Like there's tension there,
yeah,
even though you know it's more likely for Hiden to win, which isn't what happened. But let's say Hiden did win. Third round, it's like, oh, it's evenly matched. Whoever's gonna win this one has the upper hand, and it could go either way. And let's say
right,
Zaya wins again. Now it's like, oh, 2-1. Hiden needs to win this one, so they're probably going to.
right.
Or
Whereas the way they did it is like 2 wins for Zaya.
two wins for Zaya. It's like, all right, well now Hiden just has to win the next two in a row to even it out, and that just
Right.
kills the tension.
Yeah, which is
Uh,
kind of sad, but it's like honestly, there's like way more important shit going on. But it's like, yeah, like the company is still in the balance, though. I mean, technically, they're not like their sales have recovered, so even the show universe, this is like a pointless point. Like, yeah, a guy taking over would be bad because he just weaponized the human gear or like the rider system and sell that, but like it's no longer like oh shit, Arto, like your whole company's gonna go under, all the human gear are gonna get shut down. Like it's even that threat's gone. It's kind of a moot point at this point. Um, but also they gave Arto a metal cluster hopper, so it's not even like well whatever. Even if they were tied in a final battle, Bowser could win. But I'm like Bowser's constantly gotten his ass kicked, right? So against metal cluster, so it's like there's no threat. Like Ewer doesn't have to betray Bowser. Like Arto can just win straight up. Like this was, I feel like this was a miscalculation. They've kind of like
right.
just sucked
Like
out the
I
energy.
thought that like originally I was saying that like oh I think Arto will get his upgrade as the final challenge in the big like rematch, and that's not what's happened. We've gotten a rematch every episode almost. And
Yeah,
now
and
Arto just has control of Cluster Hopper, and we know it can win.
yeah, which is kind of sad and pointless. Like honestly, that form is way too OP.
Well, that's the thing is that like so I like to tier up the rider like power ups. So like base forms are tier one, and then you get your tier two upgrades. Metal Cluster Hopper is a tier three upgrade, and then so you have Fuwa who's still on tier two. You have Jin who's on tier three now because he just easily wiped the floor with Fuwa. Bowser is hovering around tier 3. He was having a real easy time beating up Fuwa and Aruto in their assault forms, so he's stronger than tier 2. So we're reaching a point where, like, of our six riders, like, three of them are now reaching the same power level. Fuwa's gonna need to catch up, Yua needs to catch up, and if Hirobi returns to being a rider, he needs to catch up.
I mean, for Hirobi to even matter, which he would kind of have to be, because like at this point, like Fua, Arto, and Yua teaming up could just take out Jin, because like Jin is strong, but like I don't think he can beat Metal Cluster and Assault and Lightning Hornet. Right? Like he's tough, but he ain't that strong. Like if he was actually Phoenix, okay, might be a problem, but he's not. Right? Because like Phoenix is like, oh shit, you just blew me up. Too bad, I'm stronger. Whereas like I don't think that's how like Jin actually works. Um, but
But
you're
they're
right.
not all going to be ganging up on Jin.
Right, I know. But like the whole point is like Hirobi would have to be a tier three. Otherwise, like there's no point of
Yeah.
keeping that character around.
So so we're probably going to get like Venom Scorpion or something like that.
Yeah, I'd be cool with that. Like Hirobi's form was pretty cool.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah, so like just
Sting
having that back
Scorpion.
would be real nice. Um, I mean, technically, Metal Cluster should be stronger than all of these guys, but like, yeah. I mean, the smart way of nerfing Metal Cluster would have been like, okay, you put half of your power or whatever in the sword, and that kind of stops it from going crazy, but you're not as strong. So it's like, yeah, you're still pretty strong, but you're not as like insanely busted as when Ark's fully in control. And that would like set up the thing of like, well, this is your strongest form, but if you need to go get even stronger, you have to kind of go into berserk mode. Like that's one of the coolest things about like build, where it's like hazard trigger is like fucking busted as all hell when it shows up, but like they don't nerf it because the whole thing is like, yeah, you can use this, but like you'll go crazy, right? And that's what makes it great because like it's the whole reason the strongest form doesn't get used in the show is like if you use it, like your rider is no longer a rider; he's just a monster. And that's such an awesome like counterpoint for like rider stuff because like that just ties back into rider history and stuff. Whereas this is like, well, now you have to make stronger guys just to beat like Metal Cluster, even though Metal Cluster is like basically super OP as all hell. It's also interesting that like Jin can now control people,
Yeah, that came with his upgrade. We don't know
right?
what
That
the
was
limits to that are, but he seems to have some control over older Human Gear models. Ones that were created under the
yeah.
Ark's control in the first place. Probably the newer ones he can't do anything about.
Hmm. That is a good point.
So if was still around, whew, that'd be bad.
Well, he's reached. Well, I'm guessing the Doctor probably reached singularity also.
We can probably just assume that most Human Gear have reached singularity at this point.
Well, most of the ones that show up, yeah.
It's like the whole reason Metsubo Jinrai became active was because Human Gear were reaching that point, and the Ark was like, time to go.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's more like they needed satellite Thea to be active, but yeah, you're right. It's a good point. Also, like, yeah, it's still weird. Thea's only been active for 4 years. Like, holy shit. Um, yeah, that is weird, man. It's gonna be interesting though going forward because like, um, okay, it's really gonna depend on what the fuck is going on with Fua, honestly. Because like, is he the secret member of Matsubo Jinrai, either brain controlled or was a robot to begin with, or whatever? Because like, depending on how that card gets dealt, it's gonna get real interesting. Um, Yua
It,
finally probably gonna become relevant again because Thouser looks like his story arc's ending, so that's good.
She she's gonna get an upgrade.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're getting an upgrade, then you're definitely gonna have to get storyline, so that's good. But holy shit, man, Jin, man, such a good form, and damn, dude, him in like his new form, like such a departure. I honestly, I was like, wait, is that even the same actor for like the longest time? Like, holy shit, it is. That's such an
Yeah, he
amazing
just
job.
cleaned up.
Well, the thing is, that just explains why they hired him. They hired him for this part, not the beginning part. It's sort of, oh, you haven't seen it. So Garo Dragon Blood, which is um, so in Garo, basically like Garo's the basically primary writer. He has a secondary writer, um, Zero or Ray, basically, and he gets like two spin-off series of his own. One's Black Blood, and then the second one is Dragon Blood. In Dragon Blood, what happens is you have this like side character who's there, like she's mostly there for the early half of the show, where it's like, oh, she's just kind of this like cutesy character who's driving the plot. And it's like she's a little stilted, but it's fine, sort of like Jin. And then like the second half happens, and like, oh shit, this is why you cast this person because they can act like super good as like a villain ish character. Um, but like, yeah, that's why they're cast for the second part, and it's like, man, that's great that they cast like Jin. Um, Also explains why they took him out so early because like there's only so much you can do acting like one note. Whereas like he's been on screen for like what, like 5 minutes, and he's like way more interesting.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, and like Hirobi already had like so much going on anyway. But you're right. It could be Zaya that upgraded them also, considering Zaya rebuilt Hirobi. Um, yeah, it's gonna be really interesting. Honestly, like this episode was super
Oh,
super well done.
entirely solid episode. Uh,
Right? Like
and
fuck, even like the effects and stuff held up, which for like a show that's halfway through, that's kind of amazing for a writer show. Because honestly, by now we would be cutting corners left, right, and center, especially on like CGI and stuff. But no, the show's putting in more stuff. I mean, they're not doing the cool like
maybe they're taking it from the
hologram.
Sentai budget.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, who knows? Um, I mean, I don't know. The first Santa in the new era is the next one, right?
uh, if you don't count Ryu Soldier as that, but I
Are we
do.
counting Rear Soldier? Well, I mean, I didn't watch that much, so I don't know how. Like, well, you saw
So like
episode zero.
for Sentai, the whole like era thing doesn't isn't really relevant the
Uh,
way it is for Rider.
yeah, it's true. Mostly
But
producers and stuff, right?
Sentai did get a like 1 month special, where a bunch of veterans returned for like a little tournament arc, and
Yeah.
then Ryu Soldier started after that. So I'd say Ryu Soldier is the start of the Reiwa era.
Okay, good enough. Budget wise, like, have you seen any difference? Like, anything
In
like this?
episode 0, or Ryu
Yeah,
Soldier.
either one.
In
But
Ryu
I'm guessing more
Soldier,
likely episode zero.
so in Ryu Soldier, like the budget was pretty standard Sentai. They went all out for the finale, but that's
But that's
also
normal.
normal. Uh, for episode 0 of Kira Major, the effects
The,
were a bit lacking. Not so much as you would. It's like it's
well, it's
it's standard Sentai. It's just like
yeah,
it's clearly like okay, they're holding back for the actual show.
yeah. That's what I was thinking too. Um,
Sorry. Uh,
Honestly, like I hope the new like CGI production pipeline is
But
Well,
like,
it's probably the same as the Rider one, so maybe they finally got their shit together, so Sentai will have a
here's the thing
budget
about
for
Kira
this. Yeah.
Major. I
Okay.
think all of the costumes are garbage. Like, not the
Oh.
ranger suits; those are fine.
Oh. Okay. Okay.
I'm talking the non-human suits. Like, you've got this alien princess from another world. She looks like garbage. You see the two of the generals for the villains. They look like garbage. The grunts, they look like garbage.
Oh, come on, man! Like seriously, everything. That's awful.
Like, the grunts look
Yeah.
like giant thumbs.
What the fuck? Why? This really annoys me because I'm just thinking back to like Tokuja. I'm like, holy shit! Like all the bad guys in Tokuja look good, or at least like the reoccurring ones. So I'm like, what the fuck happened?
Like,
Damn it, Toei. I know like Sentai's not making money, but I'm like, this your plan to just kill it at this point, right? Because like the same amount of shit like grunts show up in the writer episodes now, like this episode. Like it might as well have just been a Sentai episode with how many freaking grunts were running around. Um, hmm. Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully the Sentai is good too because the writer is real top notch right now.
all
Um,
right, so let me show you what I'm talking about.
sure.
Uh, so so in the center, you see the guy with like the moon face.
Yeah.
The, all right, so he actually has the best design. Um, and underneath that mask, he's also from like the gemstone planet, and he has like a cool gemstone head, and it looks really good. And then they put
Nice.
this mask over it because he's actually a bad guy, and so he has to look evil.
Yeah, that's kind of dumb.
Over to the right, you have the one guy wearing the two masks,
Yeah.
but like that's a real person, like lips moving and all,
Oh,
wearing those.
oh god.
Like it's like an homage to like 80s
This is
Sentai or
like,
something.
yeah, I know. This is so like 80s or
Like
early 90s
going
Sentai
back
going
to
on.
the
I'm
guy
like,
in the middle, right below him, you get a shot of the thumb people.
okay, yeah, they're not as bad as I thought, but not great.
Over to the left, you get a shot of the princess.
Oh, wow, that's a bad
Like
shit.
her eyes are the same color as the rest of her face. So like there's a scene where she wakes up, but her eyes stay the same.
So you can't tell. Oh god.
And
Oh,
like
fuck.
I personally have an issue where like her they made it look so real, like they made it look like they just put face paint on someone. So I keep expecting her mouth to move when she talks, but it doesn't. And I never have that issue.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the weird thing watching this is it looks like a mishmash of like Sentai show. I mean, Heisei era and Rider Heisei era and like Ultraman, or at least like late 80s, early 90s shit going on. It's like, what the fuck, Toei? It's like what? Okay, you know you made that joke of like, oh, they put all the Sentai budget into writer. Like I was not expecting it to be this bad. Like
And,
yeah, this at this point they did just put all the Sentai
and
budget
like
into
going
writer.
going back to the whole like this might be like some kind of 80s homage, the guy with the two masks, I didn't notice this, but according to Vashi and Drago, his movements don't match up to what he should be saying.
Oh god damn! They're doing it intentionally. Holy fuck! Holy shit!
Like a
That's
Godzilla movie.
dude like a bad goddamn movie. The worst part too is like okay from the head up terrible. From the head down, they look okay. Like literally everything on this on screen looks passable, but from the head up, it's like oh shit, we just ran out of budget. Right? It's like what the hell? This is so weird, man.
And so
Especially the
Uh,
grunt suits. Like they look okay,
the,
except they have like weird mess.
yeah, really, the masks are what kill it for me because they just look like giant thumbs.
It's so lame.
And like, so the Cure Major's gimmick is like gemstones. So they each have a gemstone partner
Oh, nice.
because, well, like, so here's the thing: is that like the gemstones are sentient,
Oh,
which
okay.
I would, you know what, I wouldn't be have a problem with that because like go Anja, right?
Right.
But they have the sentient gemstones and also the princess who delivers them, and it's like, why do you have both here?
I mean, I guess at this point, like having sentient partner or talking thing is kind of a Sentai trope.
Sell toys.
Yeah, it's true.
But like, so I wouldn't really mind this so much. But like this, the gemstones are basically bricks.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
It's
they are just
I,
a
I was gonna say it's the origami from Shinkenger, but I'm like at
no.
least that
Those
looks
have
interesting.
variety and design to them.
Yeah,
The
it's true.
gemstones here are literally just rectangles that have no expression whatsoever. They're like the lantern from Shinkenger, except with less detail.
Jesus. Okay, you know what? When you start making what's the cube one? Um
Georgia.
Geoger. Yeah. When you start making the Geoger mechs look decent, like you
Yeah,
fucked
so
up.
imagine the Georgia transformer there, the cube. Now take
Right.
away any actual detail in design. You just have a blank, bland cube, and also it talks. And that is what the
Why,
gemstones are.
Bandai?
Yeah,
Why?
therein lies the problem.
I mean, I know they're like trying to appeal to kids, so it's
And
getting
like
younger and younger, but I'm like, even kids are not gonna buy this shit.
they are the mechs themselves, right? So
Yeah.
like they open up to like form their like Zords,
Hmm.
and I'm okay with that. But one of the fun parts of gemstones are the different cuts, right? But they are
Right.
all the same exact design until they open up.
God damn it, Bandai. How lazy can you be? Holy shit. Man, I give Toei a lot of crap, but like, even Toei would never pull anything that stupid off. I mean, like these are clearly like Bandai's designs. At this point, I guess Bandai just doesn't give a fuck because, well, they've got two now. Actually, that's not true. They've got like Gundam March, then they've got like Dragon Ball, One Piece, fucking Rider, Ultraman. I don't think they have Garo, but they've got enough money. They don't give a shit about Sentai at this point, which is kind of sad. But it's like, yeah, when Rider and Ultraman uh, were suffering, and Dragon Ball was in like, you know, not hadn't returned, and like all they had like was Sentai and One Piece. Like they had to give a shit. I mean, a little bit, but they at least had to try. Now it feels like they're just trying to give as little money as possible. Like that's kind of sad, honestly.
Like Sentai toy sales have been on the decline for years now, and Real
Yes, because
Soldier
they
was
don't have
like,
any.
"Can we salvage this franchise?" Which yes, they did it, which is why we're getting Cure Major. But
Nice.
like, boy, was this a weird direction to go in. Not the gemstone theme. No, that's fine. But like everything else.
Right. It's like if you're gonna go with like gemstones, there's like so much more creative shit, like Steven Universe or
No
Land
joke.
of the. Sorry, go ahead.
No joke. Like I got bored at work one day, and I was like, if I were to make a Toku series, what would I do? And I came up with this same concept for a show of like
Huh.
a princess from another world whose world is like being invaded, and she
So
takes the
pretty
royal
standard. I mean,
right.
pretty standard Sentai plot.
She takes the royal gemstones and brings them to Earth, where she finds warriors to use them to fight back.
Right. Isn't that
Same
like
basic plot.
Live Man? Or yeah, it's like a very classic. Yeah.
But in my draft, the gemstones were not sentient. Just saying.
Yeah, because like, why would you need sentient rocks with the exposition princess?
Exactly, that's exactly my point. Why do you have both? Go on your work because the mechs went to Earth on their own.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay. Hopefully the show is good, but because
Hopefully the show is good. The cast is great, and what might save it for me is that the gemstones have a unique dynamic with their like partners, the way they like look up to them and such.
hmm, that's cool.
It's like so yellow like is like acts like his is like his cool older brother. When really yellow is just he's like, oh man, you're really good. You got really good aim and whatnot, and really yellow is just really good at video games. Like blue is an actor, and so like the gem like sees him like using a sword on a movie shoot, and he's just like, oh, he's such a cool swordsman. He's like the strongest in the world.
I love how so impressionable these gems are. Oh, it's great.
Green, he sees her running in like 100-yard sprint, and he's like, oh, she's so fast, oh man, and like goes up to Jug's like, oh, be my mistress.
Oh my god. This is okay, you know what? Like the only thing weirder would be like, oh, the shift cars from Drive showing up is like, yes, let's save the world with the power of heart wheel. I
Like,
mean, talking gems versus heart wheels, like that's the level of nonsense I'm dealing with
so
here.
like Pink is like a doctor, and she's like really good at it. She's a
Oh,
surgeon.
cool.
Uh, and like she sees her gemstone, and she's like, "Oh, it's so beautiful." And when the gemstone is acting all flattered and whatnot, Pink is just not even phased that it starts talking. Like everyone else has a moment where they question it, not Pink.
Nice. Holy crap, that's great. Also, it's been a while since we had a serious pink. That's gonna be interesting.
No,
No?
no, she's not a serious Pink. She's like a happy-go-lucky
Oh,
Pink. She's just
that's
also a really good doctor.
all right. I mean, I guess that could be useful, but that would have been interesting.
Blue is going to be the serious one
Well, that's
because
normal.
they don't meet Red yet, and when they
Yeah.
find out like, oh, there's going to be one more, Pink is like, oh, I hope he's a nice guy, and Blue's like, he just has to be strong.
Holy shit! So that's such a blue trope. Like, god damn,
Uh,
that's such like a Renoni blue anything, but like, fuck, so on the
so
nose.
Red, they haven't met him yet. He's in high school,
God damn it! Why?
uh, and he's kind of like an airheaded Red. So like he's minding
Yeah.
his own business in class, and he like he's just drawing whatever in his notebook, and these girls are like making fun of him behind his back, and one of them goes up to like mock him like, oh, you're drawing, huh? Well, why don't you draw me? And then he spends like 3 hours drawing her portrait, and
Holy
like
shit!
she sits through the whole thing because it's like, man, it must be really good if you're spending this much time on it.
It's
And then he
so
finally
good.
reveals it, and it's like a character of her with all of her like emotions bursting out of her in the background.
Oh man, that's so
And it's
good.
like all of her worst qualities too.
That's pretty funny, honestly.
So his gemstone is basically Momotaro's from Deno.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, you can't get like an airhead like guy and not give him like a contrasting
Yeah,
gemstone.
no. His gemstone's catchphrase is like "temper max" or something like that. Like
Oh,
I'm expecting that he's just gonna start beating the shit out of Red to like kick him into shape.
or just yell at him. But yeah, that's pretty obvious. High school, I'm not super great on, but I'm like, whatever.
So not
I
too
mean, I
fond of how the gems are done, but their interactions with their partners might save it for me.
well, at least they'll stick around. for a bit because like they don't have to animate shit,
Yeah,
right?
that's something we were talking about. It's like, couldn't Toei Animation have done anything?
Well, they could, but like this way at least they'll stick around because if you have mechs and stuff, usually it costs like production budget, but here it's like it's just voiceovers, so it's like you can just have them for a while. Um, Honestly, like the best solution is fucking like Deno because it's like yeah, you can just have them like your power ups are the guys hanging out with you and they can talk to you, right? So like Deno probably has the best one. Kiva's probably like a close second because like that way it's like well you don't have to have them in like every episode or like in every scene, but they're there, so it's like it's a pretty decent mix. If you're gonna go with more of a Sentai thing, Rider has other ways to get around that type of stuff. Sentai not so much because it has to be a team dynamic. It's gonna be interesting. Also, this like Rider podcast and an interesting type podcast.
Yeah, I should have changed the background.
It's not
But
bad. Anyway,
thanks for joining us tonight, everybody. Sorry we missed Beast Morphers last week, but we'll make it up to you tomorrow. Thanks for joining. We'll see you next time.
yeah, thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll catch you